Hello and welcome to the adaptation series. I'm your host Samuel Wood and this is our other host Kyle Pikett.
Hello.
And today we're going to be looking at the movie side of adaptations adapted from novels and vice versa. And I think we're going to start with a bit of a controversial one, don't you think, Kyle?
Oh God, is it Stephen King?
Indeed it is Stephen King. How did you guess? It's like this was scripted or something.
Yeah, I
You
know,
never would have guessed.
I know.
Right.
It's like we're time travelers and we know what we're gonna say before we say it.
We have completely elongated this joke, haven't we?
Yes.
Anyway,
the elongated man.
Basically, for those who don't know, Stephen King has had a mixture of opinions when it comes to his adaptations, and the reason we are looking at him specifically at the minute is because one, he is an horror icon. I don't think many people would disagree with that, do you?
No.
And
Pet Cemetery's coming out.
yeah, but we'll get to that, right?
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So don't spoil it. Come on. Okay, so all right, we'll start with Pet Sematary. What do you think?
I think the book's really overrated.
Oh yeah.
And the film's even worse.
Right, I've got right. Would you call it a good adaptation overall though? From the novel to the movie though.
Mainly just because the film is pretty much step by step from the book, except from just a few differences, such as the main antagonist or the Wendigo is completely gone from the film.
Yeah, and the ending's completely changed. And well, not completely
Well, not
changed.
completely.
It's similar enough, but it's not as creepy. And there's little visual references, like the bones in the background instead of
Yeah.
and the pets are a lot more vicious.
Yeah,
But-
that's actually a good thing.
But I know this is abbreviation, but would you say it's a good adaptation?
Yes.
Alright, can I go to The Shining then?
Yeah.
Because actually, before I go to The Shining, can we just say
I was planning to do a bit of the Pet Cemetery, talk about the Pet Cemetery trailer.
Yeah, right, go on.
Right. Okay. It seems that the Pet Cemetery film, the new one, is going into a bit of a different direction, but it's still got the same notes as what of what we got in the original. In spoilers, by the way, it instead of Gage being hit by the truck, it's going to be Ellie this time, which the trailer is completely spoilt. So the twist is already just there.
Alright, moving on. So these two adaptations I feel have been adapted somewhat loyally, and that would be Carrie and everyone's favourite clown, Pennywise. What do you think? And I am referring to all the versions. I do think for Carrie, the 76 version is the best adapted wise.
And the better film.
And the better film, yeah. And I think it's the main one that we've been focusing on for now. But I do think it focuses a bit more on Chris, while I know other versions focus a bit more on Sue.
Yeah.
And they change a lot of the destruction scene at the end, I know that much.
Yeah, at the end of the book, it's actually Chris that bit the dust at the end, and Sue was there when Carrie was dying.
Can I just say, I think the ending of the Carrie in the movie is a lot better than the...
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, good adaptation, yes or no? Would you label?
Yes,
I would. And what about Pennywise?
Well, I've not really seen it at the moment.
Oh, so there's no point of us talking about this then.
But there is for you.
Well, yeah, I think it is very successful at what it does. It gets across a lot of the book's tone, other than a few mangled differences, because a lot more children murders are in the book. Like, Georgie doesn't get eaten at first, he just gets his arm ripped off, bare hands. And the mini-series tries being faithful, but fails in every way, and there are a few chapters in the book that I am glad have been cut out. I will not go into detail here, and the interdimensional space sort of thing's gone completely, so absolute disappointment and shame.
That's a shame.
Yep. But overall, I would call it a good adaptation, but I do think the 2017 movie is actually an improvement on the first half of the book. The second half of the book is where it all completely nosedives anyway. Now, the final King book that I want to mention is his most controversial one, being The Shining.
Oh boy, here we go.
The Shining has many changes in the form of, both the mini-series and the TV show, as in, not the TV show, the movie, the famous Stanley Kubrick film, yeah. As in, all the famous parts of that film that everyone loves, like, here's Johnny, and stuff like that. Never was in the book. There's a lot more detail and development in the book, because of course there is, it is longer. But the problem is, the book tries, and the miniseries try painting Jack as this redemption character, while most of us familiar with the movie know that he is just a complete nutter from day one. Well, however, that is not the case in the novel. And there's a lot more subtle changes, like Wendy's a hot blonde in the novel, that is how she is described. His words, not mine.
That feels weird.
It is.
That feels weird now. That
And in the that's right in the miniseries, along with it being in the hotel that actually scared him in real life. That's a fun little bit. And they all end differently. Like Jack Freezer's in the movie, he kills himself in the book because the ghosts make him, and in the miniseries he redeems himself by blowing it up. And Tony's like Danny from the future, the little ant puppet that talks like this.
Which there is a film coming called Doctor Sleep, which is
the sequel.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay, would you say it's a good adaptation though, The Shining?
Of course not.
It's not.
It's not.
But it's a damn good movie.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just not a good adaptation.
Moving right along because we've stretched that time out a bit much.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna mention one of mine, War of the Worlds. It's an odd one to pick, I know, but this is what we call loose adapting, where you take the same setting and story, but you do nothing with the original source. For those who don't know, War of the Worlds is a first-person narrative about basically documenting the events taking place when invaders from Mars come by in London. And the movie takes it into an American setting, and it has like very similar beats. Like it's so weird, right? Because there's like the ferry, but there's no Thunderchild involved, like the boat that takes down the Martians. And there's a lot of characters who are just mixed and jumbled up together to create one, and it just doesn't work. But they do keep the ending intact, which is what everyone moans at. So, right, from that plot synopsis, that fantastic plot synopsis. Oh, and Tom Cruise isn't in the book, just fair warning. Right, what would you say that's inaccurate?
Not really.
What about from a loose adaptation? Because the tripods are fairly faithful. Because it's weird, because it hits very similar story beats, like the bit in the basement, although it's very different because there's no little girl screaming and all that. But I think War of the Worlds itself fails as a movie on its own, because the character arcs are very loose and they don't go anywhere. Like, they have a second act, but they don't have a third act, if you know what I mean. And the third act of the movie, with all the red weed stuff and everything, it's like so strange because like nothing's going anywhere and the world's all red and all blooded. But like in the movie, they completely tell you it's people's blood that they've been drinking and harvesting on the world. But in the book, it's only hinted at and stuff like that, and that comes at during the second act, kind of. But from like all these loose plot points that it hits, would you call that accurate?
For loose adaptation, maybe.
Yeah. Don't mean it's a good film though. Okay. Do you want to talk about another one now?
Harry Potter.
You want to talk about Harry Potter?
Yeah, we're talking about Harry Potter.
Let's talk about Harry Potter. I am mainly going off the first three films.
Yeah.
Okay, so
fairly accurate.
Yeah, I think they get less accurate as they go along. But that's because the readers are getting older. Because if you've ever grown up with Mr. Potter, you know exactly what that's going on about. But yeah, would you really call that? But I don't know how to word this. This is really strange. Right, I haven't read these in years, but I did I've read a decent bit for these reviews. Right, I think the most accurate out of all of them is the Philosopher's Stone. Philosopher's America.
It's not sorcerers. If you call it sorcerers, then
right, because they hit right. There's only like one decently big change to the first book, and that would be that Hagrid actually leaves him with the Dursleys a bit longer. Because like in the movie, he just appears, says happy birthday, and goes, right, you come with me, and he kidnaps him. Right, but he does. Right, but in the book, he kidnaps him, gets all his stuff, and then sends him back, and then picks him up again. And then there's like a midterm break where Harry goes home. That was completely pointless and mitigated. And Malfoy has a bit more screen time in the book. Well, it's not really screen time, is it? It's more novel time. Is there actually a term for that?
I'm just going to call it screen time.
Yeah. Where he tries setting up Harry and Ron into a duel, but they don't accept and they get detention. Yeah. I think that's how it went. Yeah. And the way he grasses them up, but other than that, it's very tame compared to what comes later. Chamber of Secrets has a few changes. There's some weird changes for Tom Riddle's diary that I remember.
Yeah, sure.
That goes on a lot longer, and Harry goes through a few more flaws, which is a bit weird and pointless, but whatever. The battle against the snake is a little more different as well. By that I mean he actually tries Parcel Tongue instead of, I think that's how you say it. Parcel Tongue. Yeah. Where he tries fighting Tom Riddle's big snake thing.
The Basilisk.
Yeah, the big snake thing.
Big snake.
Yeah, it is the big snake thing.
That's what you're gonna call it.
Yeah, big snake thing.
Big snake.
Trademarked.
So I can't use it now. Can I?
No. Yeah, let's go. Alright, do you want to mention any changes?
Not really. I think you've just gone them all down, really.
Oh, another one in the second one, the potion, is it poly?
Oh yeah. They changed it for the film.
Yeah, the voices don't change in the movie, which is a big plot point in the books when they're going around using it, and even for the stage play. Actually, I never thought I'd mention the stage play.
Oh wait, what?
You know the Eight Cursed Child?
Yeah.
That has the book use of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Overall.
But yeah, I'd call all the Harry Potter books overall. I know we've only talked about the first two, but I've read a decent amount of them and know a decent amount of them. But I would say they are all very good adaptations, and they mainly trim down on like world building stuff. But if you want that world building stuff, just go to J.K. Rowling's Twitter. We are not paid promotion by J.K. Rowling, by the way. But go to her Twitter; she's got all the lore on there. And
God.
And do I ever have to talk about Harry Potter again? Ever in my life?
I mean, we're going to have to talk about the movie tie-in games. Maybe.
We'll get there one day.
We'll get there.
One day. I hope that day never comes. Right, shall I start the next one?
Oh, you're going for Ready Player One.
I'm going for Ready Player One. Right, the reason I'm going for Ready Player One is because it's a very close adaptation and it's very interesting. As in the writer of the book did do half the screenwriting for it, which I thought was very interesting. And yes, I have read the book twice, even though it's just an alright book. It's fine, but basically. There's a lot cut out from the book, because you know the basic premise of Ready Player One. Yeah. You know, guys in a virtual video game with keys that they've got to find to get a big
I wonder what that reminds me of.
Adventure.
Sword Art Online.
It's Sword Art Online, but better. Because it's got the 80s in it. But basically, it's a complete nostalgia trick back with all these, like... Because the world's gone to crap. And we have used virtual reality basically to escape to another dimension where everything is perfect. We can make it whatever we want, and you can definitely tell it's a Spielberg film the minute it starts. But other than that, like, it's the same premise, but it's a lot more. The movie's more action oriented. Like the first challenge in the movie is a giant racetrack, just so you can go. I remember the Batmobile. Do you remember the Batmobile? Do you remember the DeLorean? Oh, fun little fact about the DeLorean. In the book, it also had Ghostbuster stickers on the doors. That sounds about right, doesn't it? For that novel. But no, in the book, it's actually in a hidden planet area on the school grounds, and it's you've got to play an arcade game against a skeleton of Joust. Right, and then also something is cut out of the book are these gates where you have to reenact certain events. Right. I'll give you an example. Like the first gate that he goes to, he has to replay the entire movie War Games as the main character, and he's got to recite it line for line for the most points to get the key. It's quite interesting, but I don't think it would have worked for movie terms. And I would say it's accurate, like because it's full of stuff like that and little detail changes, like he gets an extra life from Pac-Man instead of Simon Pegg's character. I know he has a name, but he is Simon Pegg.
Oh, Simon Pegg's in it.
Yeah, Simon Pegg is in it.
Oh my god.
I thought you saw this. And there's a few different pacing issues, but it does hit most of them beat by beat, and it just changes a lot of the pop culture references, other than the first race. But other than that, like instead of doing Blade Runner, he does The Shining, for example. But you can just tell that's Steven Spielberg and his crush on Stanley Kubrick. Right. But overall, I would say it's an accurate adaptation because it hits all the main beats, similar to All the Worlds. But I think it hits them better. In a way, because it's more visually, and it's just pop culture references swapped around. And when that Mechagodzilla fight happened at the end, it was just spectacular. It was the Iron Giant and a Gundam teaming up against Mechagodzilla. You don't get cooler than that. Right, do you think? So yeah, from my description, would you say it was an accurate one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Ready, blue. And I'm gonna get crucified for actually praising that book. Okay, so sometimes other text other sources can be adapted from a movie instead. This is kind of rare, but it happens. So the main one we've gone for is
Star Wars.
the little franchise no one has ever heard about.
It's so little.
It is so tiny, isn't it?
I know.
Right, no one's heard of that. But yeah, Star Wars, if you don't know, was a movie first, and it got adapted into everything. It even had a sequel novel in case it didn't do very well. And that is really bizarre reading because that was back when Luke and Leia weren't established as siblings. And you can imagine the sexual tension the writer had.
Oh no!
This came out in the 70s and then got adapted into a graphic novel, believe it or not.
Oh wait, when?
Yeah, I think it was 2011, don't quote me on them numbers though. But yeah, I think that's worth checking out if you're curious to a what-if story. But basically, other than that, you know, there are hundreds of Star Wars novels out there. A lot of that are no longer canon because Disney hates continuity that has been built up over the span of 30 years. But, you know, these books are primarily, you know, either repackaged versions of the movie that add very little, like The Force Awakens. This is what you tend to get with most adaptations of in this format, but I'm bringing The Force Awakens up because there's a few bits that the book adds. Like, you know when they're having that duel against Kylo Ren?
Yeah.
Rey actually hears Snoke tempting her to kill him.
Oh.
And that's
wow.
and that creates the link how they talk to each other in that last Star Wars movie we don't talk about.
Ah, yes, The Last Jedi.
Yeah, that one.
If you like Last Jedi, that's fine.
Yeah, you all have valid opinions.
I don't think it's a good movie.
But overall, I would say it's a good adaptation, but at the same time, it's a bit of a scummy adaptation because you know if you didn't read that last bit,
yeah,
the bit where they go, "Oh, we can connect our minds with the Force," you know, Snoke does in that movie.
Yeah,
it's a bit out of nowhere.
I've kind of just like repressed that movie a little bit.
And we will bring this one up again in future, but say the prequel series inspired another series of an adaptation called Star Wars: The Clone Wars. That was a brilliant film.
Beautiful.
We'll get to that. And the graphic novels have adapted serious bits as well, thanks to Disney.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the prequel stuff is being covered by Disney at the minute in the comics, and the Darth Vader series, which spans off and explains the events before A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, which is fantastic.
Then we have to Darth Maul.
Yeah, we'll get to Darth Maul in a minute because that's
Maul.
which is no, we'll get to that next week because that's Clone Wars. That's specifically Clone Wars.
Okay.
But, yeah. And but most of these, I would say,
actually, the Darth Maul comic didn't actually happen in the Clone Wars. It was before the Phantom Menace.
Oh yes.
So
basically, what you find with adaptations like this, they are basically done for prequel purposes, for world building and stuff like that. You get very little from these most of the time.
Honestly, I thought you were going to say money.
Well, yeah, that's the obvious one.
Obviously.
Yeah, what else are you going to do? So would you call most of these good, from what you've read, like of the expanded universe, because I've read a decent bit amount of them, would you call these good adaptations? I want to save most of these for the next episode, though.
Yeah. Like, if you take a look at the Darth Maul ones, we learn how he, learned that Luke was, his son. Like, Boba Fett actually found information began Luke. And reported back to
and that adds to his character. That adds to his character and how he knows him in Empire and stuff like that. That was also, I think that was in the and that was from the Christmas special as well, Boba Fett.
Right, I think we should stop now because we'll be going on about
Star Wars. Yeah, we can go on about Star Wars for years, though, to be fair.
We can just keep on going. So...
Okay, so yes, is that a good pass for them?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
We're going to Dr. Seuss next.
Finally, our last category of the day is everyone's favourite childhood author, Dr. Seuss.
I'll get you. And it'll look like a bloody accident.
Quote cat in the hand. So right, can I just start by saying, sometimes there are things that should be adapted. Some things you really shouldn't adapt. Don't adapt a Dr. Seuss movie, because these movies we're going to talk about right now are garbage.
Well, they're making a Green Eggs and Ham TV show on Netflix.
Again, apparently it's
which
really...
is said to be...
Anyway, right. Right. Anyway, so what would you say about the... Okay, there are two categories for these, though. Live action and animated. Shall we start with live action? Right. Cat in the Hat is... one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It's poorly shot, poorly executed. It tries adapting the book characters well, but it comes off as creepy, if anything. Thing 1 and Thing 2 should be Abomination 1 and Abomination 2. The fish looks worse than it does on American Dad. I mean, come on.
Also, advertisements.
Yes, there was a bit... Right,
Yes.
Terribly written joke, and it doesn't even follow the themes of the original anymore. When you have lost your main points in a story, you know you have messed up big time.
And let's not forget the acting.
Oh,
Oh my god.
Everyone's favourite Bohemian Rhapsody singer, Mike Myers, he, oh boy! Let's just say he reached his peak in Shrek. But other than that, it's shot poorly, it's acted poorly, it loses all sense of morality when it comes to not selling out. It just looks ugly and plastic as well, and the jokes don't go anywhere, and it's so out of touch. Like, you know the TV shows, those little mini ones they've got on like CITV and stuff like that? They're better adaptations of Cat in the Hat.
Fuck.
Right, next we've got three to compare to each other.
So I have to
The Grinch.
I have to bring that one out.
What did you say the F word?
Yeah, just as he said that.
Oh, god damn it, Kyle. Right,
Anyway,
moving on. The Grinch.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but you know what I find fascinating?
Jim Carrey.
No, shut up. Right. The original animated one is just as bad because as it adds filler, but it's a much more loyal adaptation. Basically, I think the animated ones work better, but they still don't work because they're still adding like pop songs in and filler, and it just does not work in any sort of sense.
All I can imagine is Let It Grow now.
Yeah, God.
Because it is a meme.
Yeah, no, but like but they just completely missed the point. So you know what I'm going to say about all Dr. Seuss adaptations?
What?
All terrible. All of them.
Christ.
Right, some of them could be decently charming with the animated ones, but they are full of so much stock and filler. It is unbelievable.
Well, Cat in the Hat too.
Cat Strikes Back. I think we should call that a wrap. So failed adaptation.
Failed adaptations.
So shall we call that a wrap?
Yeah. The conclusion. Star Wars: The Last Jedi is a bad film.
We have completely missed the mark here. Alright, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.
See you next week. Bye bye.